Morning, listen to Planet Green Trees. Call number is 1-347-326-9626. We are in the studio right now, and we are with Chad, Jamie, Mike McShane, Peanut Butter, and Rick. And we are going to go right to our first guest tonight, Barb Agro.
Hi,
Barb, welcome
how are
to
you?
the show. Good. Thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, it's great to be on.
Hey,
I'm glad I got the message in time.
We are too. You know, every week we try to have patients and people in the community call in and talk about their experiences that they've had with dealing with the medical marijuana implementation of the law. Your story is one of horror and tragedy and torture at a minimum. And I was talking a little earlier about the deprivation of people's rights to present a medical marijuana defense at trial. And you unfortunately experienced that in one of the cases that you were charging. Will you tell our listeners a little bit about that and how that came about?
Right, and the raid on my home is what I was not allowed to use the medical marijuana defense. My husband Sal was at home he was at home, and my other son's home was being raided. He ran out of the house, jumped in the car, left his wallet on the table to check on my daughter-in-law and the two grandkids. Fortunately, the two grandkids were at a neighbor's house playing. But in the meantime, they came and raided my home, and we were growing. I had 18 plants and 2 dead ones. It was our first attempt at growing. When my husband came back home, they were already inside of our house. The reason that they would not allow me, of course, in the meantime, my husband died of a heart attack 4 days later. And they wouldn't let me use the medical marijuana defense because my house was not an enclosed lock facility. No, I agree. It had locks on all the doors, but with him being more concerned about his children and his grandchildren, the door was not locked when they came in. And we could have said, of course, that they banged it in or did however they got in, but, we admitted to the fact, So, anyway, that's why I was not allowed to. Now, mine is going before the appellate court, and it should be sometime here in the next week or two. I heard from my appellate attorney the other day, and there were so many things that they did wrong. When they raided the dispensary, clinical relief dispensary, where I was at the time of the raid on my house, I told them that I was a medical marijuana patient and that my husband was. And they said, well, you'd be willing to write that down? And I said, sure, And I told them I had approximately, I didn't know how many plants we had. I knew, that we were allowed to have like 60-some plants, but we only had the 18 or, and 2 dead ones. So I wrote that out and said I'm a medical marijuana patient. I'm growing marijuana in my basement, and I have approximately 18 plants. My husband is a patient and a caregiver, as am I, and we're allowed to have 70-some plants. I can't remember. Well, when we went to court, the prosecutor allowed the thing that I had written out the day of the raid, but they whited out the fact that I was a patient and a caregiver and that my husband was. All it said on this was that I was growing marijuana in my basement.
You're listening to Planet Green Trees, and our special guest tonight, Barb Agro. She's describing this tragedy that she went through. Let me just, kind of summarize. For those that don't know, your son, your family was involved with a dispensary in Ferndale. It was called Clinical Relief. They'd gotten permission from the local city officials. They'd actually been in there and toured it, and I think the detective or the chief of police had come in and given a nod to it as well. So the purpose that an operation was done by way of approval. It wasn't some kind of back room kind of thing that was hiding. You were transparent. Nonetheless, and also thousands of pieces of evidence to suggest that everything that was going on was lawful, including the executive of Oakland County had written a memorandum suggesting that those communities that were concerned about how to address medical marijuana could do what Livonia did by banning it. They could do, I think, what Rochester was doing, which was, zoning in certain areas, or what Ferndale was doing and licensing for it. So you had even a double, and there's much more evidence. I'm being, limited in that. But despite all that, and without warning, without a police shutdown, there was raids that took place simultaneously, also in Waterford, cases that I was involved in, still am involved in, and they went in at multiple strikes, both into the dispensary where you were working, your son's homes, as well as your home. And what you were describing was how when word got back to your husband, sale of these raids happening at his children's homes, he got concerned and left the house in a hurry, leaving the door open. And it was that act of rushing out of the house quickly and leaving the door open that resulted in you not being able to present a medical marijuana defense. And that, in fact, your husband died of a heart attack 4 days after this incident. And as you went forward on this case, all of the things that you wrote down in your confession or statement to the police relative to your patient status and caregiver status was redacted from the statement, and what the jury got to see was just very, very limited, if anything, aspects of the case. In fact, they were just taking away the actual truth. Now, the good news was that in this other case, because you were involved with being charged with this clinical case, and here you are. You're, and let me just give a little background on Barb Agro for those that don't know her. She's a very young-looking 70-year-old woman who was, if I believe, a dispatcher for the city of
Lake Orion Police Department for 28 years.
28 years. Her husband was a coach. I know everyone spoke just like what a great guy he was. He's a pillar in the community. And we're talking about your felony cases right now, Barb. Right. I mean, it's silly that you, and this is one of the points that I've made many times. My clients, as of late, have been couples that are in their, mid-60s, mid-50s, mid-70s, whatever, and they've been married for a long time. And I'm in court talking about the, some technical violations of the law, and this is not what was intended here. But the good news is that in the case where you were charged for being part with the dispensary clinical relief, tell our listeners what happened.
Well, the case was brought before Judge O'Brien, and he threw the case out of court and said, the prosecutor didn't have a case. So Jessica Cooper is going to appeal it and take it further. This has gone on, this court case, since August 25th of 2010. Now, here it is, 2012, and she's still pursuing it because she can't stand the fact that she lost and that Judge O'Brien threw it out. That was the first big slap in the face, I think, that Oakland County got, the prosecuting office, because I don't think they were prepared for. They've had everybody else. It seems like so many judges, not follow the law, and Judge O'Brien did. Thank God.
Well,
but of course, she's going to take it to appeals court. It's going to go to the appeals court because she hasn't spent enough of Oakland County taxpayers' money.
And she's appealing it on the grounds that the law is crystal clear and everybody is able to follow it. Am I right? And that it was.
Oh yeah, that's her statement now.
Right,
Bill
but she was
Schuette's
the first
statement. Bill Schuette's statement is that the law is full of holes like Swiss cheese. That came out of him, but Jessica knows better. And she, all along the way, had made several statements in the newspaper that the law was not clear.
Absolutely.
So, now she's doing a backpedal and saying, well, yeah, the law is clear.
What's interesting is that the lock-closed definition that was the element that was not present that had you in compliance with the Act, which prevented you from bringing a medical marijuana defense, came from the People versus Larry King case, which was decided at a time much later than you were rated upon, meaning you would have had to have had, vision into the future and been able to foresee that the court, on appeal, mind you, not because the trial court would have ruled in your favor and you would have been able to present a medical marijuana defense, it would have been an issue. And what O'Brien did in the case, which I thought was very interesting, was he saw that none of the persons that were charged in that dispensary case would have, could have, or should have had notice of what behavior was prohibited, and that does not make for due process, and dismissed the case. And likewise in like the Waterford case, when our judge ruled that ignorance of the law is no excuse, begs the question: isn't there multiple? There's now obviously multiple interpretations, even within the same bench there, that this law is not so clear, and lends, I think, weight to the idea that there isn't proper notice given when you're charging these people with crimes. Is it true in your case regarding the jury trial, the one where you were not able to bring a defense of medical marijuana, was the jury sending notes out asking about your patient status? Is that what I understood?
Yes, absolutely. Judge Potts instructed the jury, now, if you have any questions that you would like me to answer, write them down and hand them to my clerk, and I will answer them for her. Well, 3 separate jurors at 3 separate times sent a note, and it said, "Is she a medical marijuana patient?" And she looked at them and said, "I'm sorry, I can't answer that question," to 3 different people. Now, what's she up there for if she can't tell the truth?
Amazing. Not justice.
No, for sure.
I understand you have a new addition to your family also, Barb.
I do. I have a great-grandson that's coming to visit me this Saturday from Denver, Colorado. That would be the first time I've seen him. He was born October 22nd, so I'm excited. And they kept wanting me to go to Colorado, and I really couldn't plan on taking a trip because I didn't know if I'd have to return, for court. You never know, So I instead, once I found out that the case was thrown out, I just sent her a ticket and said, "Come and see me." So she's coming to warm weather in Florida.
Your son Nick spilled the beans on that one. That's why we had to share it with the world. He told me today.
About the baby? Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited. Yep. I'm a great grandma. Hard to believe.
Well, thank you for coming on. We're going to let you go. We've got the representatives on the line, and we don't want to keep them waiting.
Okay.
Thank you so much for calling in, Barb.
You're welcome, Mike. And I appreciate, the Buddy Award for Sal is just a thrill.
Yes.
I couldn't be prouder, and just keep up the good work. I think, if you don't mind me just taking a second here, I think since all of these raids in August of 2010, it doesn't seem like there's a day goes by that in some newspaper somewhere, even the Huffington Post, there's an article about medical marijuana. So if Oakland County did do anything good in this process of what they've been doing, they brought it to the public's attention, and I think we're getting more and more people on the bandwagon, that believe in medical marijuana. So they did something good.